Oh yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good. Very good today, as a matter of fact.
Right on, right on. So this is a good one. This is a good one. We're all pretty damn excited.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna bring on Metalhead Fred Banana to break down what we got going on.
Hi,
What's happening?
guys.
Fred,
What's up?
How we doing tonight?
Good man.
very
What's
good.
Good. I'm sore as hell. I played pickleball a couple days ago, and
For people that
being
don't
mis-
know, that's a game and not
it's tennis condensed. It's for us it's old farts.
Yeah.
And being Mr. Competitive Day, I dove a couple times, and when you dive on asphalt in shorts, it's not. It doesn't add up well. So thank
Right.
God my doctor, Dr. Miller, prescribed me
nice.
some medication.
Nice.
Tonight we have Mark Zonder, who is widely regarded as one of the most influential and technically proficient prog rock drummers on the planet from his days with the incredible Fates Warning and also Warlord, and now is the brainchild behind a new world-class inspired rock and roll band, A-Z or A to Z, featuring vocalist Ray Alder, and their second album scheduled for release on June 6th on Metal Blade Records, appropriately titled A2Z2. Lots to talk about. So let's please welcome to Creativity Talking, Mark Zonder.
Mark, what's happening, man?
Not too much. Just another sunny day in
Mark.
Southern California, man.
Nice.
Right on. Whereabouts in Southern Cali are you?
Agora Hills, outside of Calabasas.
Oh, right on.
I got dinner with the Kardashians when we get done here. I just got to go down the street.
Tell Kim we said hi.
Yeah.
That'll be the first thing I do.
Don't mean to
Hey,
butt in.
do you happen to attend the NAM show when it's out there?
You know, I probably done 20 in my day. Just like everything else in this industry, though, it has radically changed.
My bad.
Back in the day, it was amazing. You know, it was just amazing. What's happened recently is it's just got so expensive. So many of even the big companies don't do like what they did.
Right.
You know, and the smaller ones are just squeezed out. You know, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's really changed around. I think everything too, what happened over the years is everybody went, wait a minute, we can do this on Zoom. You know, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And what most people don't realize is that the NAMM show is about people doing business. It's not about Johnny Rocket getting a guitar endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was just kind of the added bonus. And you got to watch the girls walking up and down the hallways, and you know, some idiot over there with a Marshall on 12. But it really is just about sales. You know, and
Right.
Yeah, it's a vendor show.
You know.
Yeah, everyone's a vendor. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You know. So, but yes, I've been to a few. I haven't been lately. It's just kind of. I would just go see the people that I basically talk to all year just to say hi, kind of thing, and then move on. You know,
I'm going to attend my first one in January, so I'm maybe you can pop in or buy you a beer.
Absolutely. I'm always good for a free beer.
So we talked about the new album coming out, A-Z or A to Z, Alder to Zonder, which is cool, and anything in between. Great album cover, by the way. That crocodile with the zipper on them. So we talked in the pre-show that I write reviews for the online website magazine Metal Temple. And as a critic, I critique the album from my point of view, how I interpret, how I hear it, how it affects me. So before we get into the details behind the creation and the creativity of the new album, A2Z2, I just want to hear your thoughts, your description behind the new album.
Just strictly the album by itself kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, not necessarily how it came together, but how would you describe, if you were reviewing it, how would you describe it?
Album of the year?
Absolutely.
Which comes out June 6th.
I'm just kidding. Best thing that I've ever done. Best musicians I've been able to play with. And maybe not, no, they're all pretty good. I mean, not necessarily much the playing, but it's more, if you want to use the analogy of a sports team and I'm the coach, they all bought in. They bought into what we were doing. You know, we're playing the triangle. We're doing the triangle. You know, we're picking up at half court, whatever. They bought in. It was the easiest record to do. It was so much fun in the respect of, I would hear this thing where after, you know, we had songs, gave it to Ray, he put his vocal down, and I'd get back in touch with Nick and say, hey, man, you know, Ray's singing this kind of little part here. How about check this drum part out that matches what he's doing? Maybe we all can do that. In the old days, I would be lucky if I got 70% return on investment on that one. You know, it's like, okay, you kind of got it, but you didn't. I can't push it anymore. We're done. What these guys would do is go, hey, Mark, that's really cute, but check this out. And they take it up 3 levels and take it to another level. And that's where the magic on this record is. This, to me, this record is magic. It sounds like guys have been playing together 10 years. We never played in the same room together.
That was what I was going to ask, is the recording process, if you guys all did it remotely or if you know.
Yeah, we did it remotely. We demoed it to death. I lived with this stuff for years. It seemed like years anyways. And just constantly changing and thinking of ideas and doing different things. You know, here in my recording studio, the drum room's behind me. I'm sitting in the control room. I have an analog console. I have all the Neve stuff, all the Manley stuff, the Summit audio, you know, anything that any major studio in LA is going to have for drums. Now, I can't mix a record here, but for drums, which is all I really care about anyway. So we just kind of start there, but it's a very analog sounding record. It's a very, I don't know. I must have heard it 100 times. You know, I listen to it every day at the gym kind of thing. And I'm always looking for something that I can go, God, you know, next time we'll do something different, but I haven't heard it. And it just, you know, it's a gift. It really is a gift. You know, the album cover, Hugh Syme did it again. It's an alligator in the zipper, the A through Z thing, just like the apple and the zebra, trying to, you know, taking it to the description that, okay, getting back to your question now that it's 20 minutes later, I would say it's a complete package. You know, it's a package. It's got the album cover. It's got the art. It's got everything on the inside. Every thought and detail has been thought of all the way down to the, you know, the disc labels on it. You know, side A is A and B, the backside is Z. You know, all the Hugh Syme stuff that's going on. Doing the correct videos. You know, I've done probably 8 or 9 other videos of playthroughs, instructional stuff about drum stuff, about gear, about this, about that. Just constantly doing everything that we possibly can do, which leads up to touring that we can do. So it's a complete package, you know, and to me, it's an amazing sounding record. To me, I mean, I've done some that aren't so amazing sounding.
This album, the band sounds tight as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no like the Stones building all those ancient, you know, structures. There's no air between those bricks, you know.
You know, I love the first record, of course. I mean, like, I've been a huge fan of your drumming since the Fates days, you know, and you know, back when the first record was getting ready to come out, and I started seeing, you know, some leaks that this new band was coming around. Of course, I was really excited. Loved the first record, but listening to this one, you guys killed it. I mean, you knocked it out of the park. It's for me, it's one of those rare records that you could just start at track 1 and let the whole thing play. And I mean, there wasn't a song that I even remotely wanted to fast forward through, you know. You don't get that much these days, you know. I mean, there's only rare albums that's the case.
I appreciate that. You know, there's a lot of work that went into that. This was not a band that wrote 20 songs and picked the top 10.
Yeah.
We wrote songs, and we, you know, I would like to think that we knew, you know, 4 bars in, man, this sucks. You know, this. Sorry, man. Here's an interesting story. The first single, Nothing Is Over. Okay. One of the first songs that Nick and I wrote kind of sums up the record in a way. You know, a lot of people said, you listen to that, you kind of get the flavor of the whole record. When he first started on that, when he sent me that riff, it was in a major key. And I went, Nick, I know Foreigner does it really well. They can play between the majors and the minors. I go, not my gig, you know. It's got to be dark. It's got to be minor, you know. It has to be. So he flipped it, you know, just flipped it. Whatever guitar players do. I'm a drummer. I don't know. Whatever you do, he flipped it, and there we are. And it's kind of like that was the template for the whole record as far as just this working relationship between all of us.
Right.
And it was more a thing of like, no, man, play that lead more. You know, no, start 4 bars earlier while he's still singing and come in behind him and all those kind of things. And it was just such a joy to work with these guys. I mean, it was scary, you know, it really was. But, you know, I learned the lesson after that first record, and you really got to surround yourself, you know, people that you love, people that you trust, people that trust you, and people that can communicate and are mature. And everybody throws around that word professional and pro, but
Right.
there's definitely a different meaning of it when it comes to a situation, especially when everybody's in a different part of the country and they have their own lives,
Right.
but they all buy in. They know, okay, we're doing this, so let's do it. You know, don't disappear for 2.5 weeks and I have to chase you down and then
Right.
find out that your pet turtle died,
Right.
you know, or whatever. And, so, and they all bought in, they got it, when we did those videos, man, and they brought everybody together, more than one person came up to me and said, hey man, you did this, you pushed this, and I was pushing people, but that's
what you got to do, man.
Yeah.
That's your gig, and the whole album, it's consistent. The production is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And of course, as soon as like a couple days ago, I started doing research, seeing what you're saying in interviews and checking out the whole album. And I'm like, I'll go on YouTube. And so I'm learning to play the drums again. I started a couple years ago during the plague. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh yeah, there's a playthrough. I Am Numb. Fuck you.
Well, did you see the playthrough for Nothing Is Over? I didn't that too.
God. I was like 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just have to watch now because that, dude, the drums on this album are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Every track is just, how do you? And then you've always been fantastic. Like me and Jason were talking with your cymbal work.
Yeah, I love that. I've always,
And so many drummers now don't know that like the hi-hat is its own instrument.
Yeah.
And
I actually did a video about that. Like that's the favorite part of the kit, that to me, and why. And then I showed how if you play it with your foot on the downbeat, it sounds one way. You play it on the upbeat, on a straight beat, it sounds completely different.
Yeah.
Right.
It amazes me, not that we're going to get into drum geek talk, but it amazes me how many, quote, big players, that left foot is just sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just sitting there. It's like, that's not the school I came from.
Right.
I came from all four limbs, independence, and then it got stupid when I got into Dave Garibaldi of Tower of Power. And, then it got really stupid. But, it's interesting that you say that about the drums because it's a 4-piece kit. That's it. It's smaller than what Buddy Rich played.
Right.
Yeah.
And then listen to that record and listen to what comes out of it.
Right.
And then look at some of these other records that come up in the guy's drum set looks like a music store. And, can you, and I would love to see them side by side and just like a big question mark.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's funny because I think a lot of that production comes from when I'm playing, everything I'm thinking about is how's it sounding out of the speakers? If I'm going to hit 2 crashes over here and then I'm going to get cute with the hi-hat over here,
right,
it's going to get buried because that sound of those crashes are going to be a mess.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking that way. And so I'm helping myself in the production before we even get to the production because every drummer wants to hear themselves, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole point of playing.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time and energy thinking that way instead of, oh man, this will sound great, man. I'm just beating the crap out of it, know? And just the whole placement of everything stereo. I only have a crash on this side and a crash on that side, a China on that side, a China on that side. I don't need a 17, 18, and 19. No one can tell the difference.
Right.
And it's just a 10-inch rack and a 14-inch floor, wide open, nothing in them, nothing on them. Remo Ambassador single ply heads. The bass drum is an interesting thing. It's these are all DW custom, handmade, blah, blah, blah. It's the only drum set I own, actually. But it's wide open and it's just a felt strip about 8 inches on the back head just to kind of dampen it. And it just sounds, it just comes out sounding the most incredible kick. Just,
oh yeah.
Well,
the whole kit sounds fantastic. So, I mean, that's I'm a bass player, not a drummer, but I'm a fan of drummers, but I would attest that to your, obviously tuning ability and miking ability. Cause I mean, let's face it, you have some engineering prowess, obviously, tracking your own drums and the sound that you get.
Yes, but I'll be honest. I bring in somebody when we do quote records. I can wing it, and I don't like to touch things. I mean, it's just I have a great engineer named Kevin Majorino who does front of house for Jewel, and he's one of these half science, half art guys. And So there's some science going on with the miking, but then there's some art of trying different things. And he just gets an amazing sound.
Yeah.
You know, it's great gear. He gets the sound. I don't really, I mean, I can wing it. I'd make a great second engineer because, you know, I can plug stuff in really well. And, you know, I know what the things do. I just don't have those ears. I just don't. You know, the drums sound loud every time I mix something. I mean, it's like, okay, you know.
I mean, kudos to him because the drum sound is killer on this.
Yeah,
record.
we've kind of covered that one. You know, the mics, Loughton Audio mics, just fantastic. I've been with Brian for years, and the smaller kit in a really dead room. You know, it used to be that kind of live room, and I got kind of tired of thinking of my overheads as room mics. It just wasn't happening.
Right.
So I went the theater curtain route and just deadened the whole place down in a couple of baffles, and it's all tone. It's so clean. You can hear the hi-hat like right there, and the ride is right there. It's not like ping-ponging all over the room and stuff like that. No, I appreciate it. Full-on analog, no samples, no triggers, no this, no that. Good old-fashioned compression and parallel compression. And, you know, Simone does an amazing job with the mix.
Yeah.
But to me, it sounds like an analog record.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many, you know, we talk about this all the time, that so many albums now. And what I liked about when I saw your interviews, you're excited, you can tell you're still passionate, and you're ready and raring to go. And a lot of guys are, you know, aren't. You know what I mean? They're just not, you know, whatever. And this is, you know, making my bread and butter right now, and that's fine. But man, you can tell in the music as well, you know, and beyond that, you're still, people don't know how long into this now, and your excitement level is still high.
Yeah.
You know, because like to keep it going, and people don't know what the cycle, you know, we're talking 3 years, 4 or 5 years. And now you guys have 2 albums, and now you have an entire set that you can go out and play live, that we hope, you know, we get to see that.
I think a lot of what you were just talking about there about the excitement is, I never did this for money. And what I mean by that, oh, trust me, I would take it if it came. But I'm not Eddie Vedder, okay? I'm not that guy. Oh man, I don't want the fame, you know. Yeah, no. It's very early on. I knew that I didn't want to be relying on Johnny and his cover band to eat. Yeah. So I got into the studio business kind of by hook or by crook, you know, 30, 40 years ago. And, you know, I own a building. It's about 6,000 square feet. It's got 10 recording suites in it now. It started out as rehearsal. It was booked for years and years and years. And it's like, that's what lets me do the things that aren't making the big money, that are more about my passion of playing the drums.
Right.
And you were also smart enough to think outside the box to get some creative financing through 2 guys who literally hated each other.
Oh, you know that story.
I listened to an interview that you were given not too long ago, and I think that's because that's what people need to hear. That's the stuff that makes the difference between.
Well, I don't know the story, so let's hear that
very quickly.
Yeah.
And I have no time limit, so I could go all night. So don't worry about that.
Oh, right on.
Okay, so we got Warlord Manor, where Warlord's living in an old beat to crap warehouse upstairs, living with the cockroaches. We have a shower that we got at Sears, which was plastic bin, and we hooked it up to a hose. It was cool. It worked. You know, the chicks dug it. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, put it this way. My 2 brothers told my mom, you might not want to go see Mark at the old warehouse. You might want to meet him at a restaurant. But anyways, great times. No responsibilities, no wives, no kids, nothing. It was awesome. We were starving, mind you, but it was awesome. So Warlord's doing its thing. Warlord falls apart. I'm stuck with about 800 square feet in a 10,000 square foot building. There's other things going on in that building. The guy downstairs is living there with his family, and he makes like the leather belts for the police department. So he hit this press and the whole building would shake. Long story short, a buddy of mine says, hey man, I'll give you $20 if I can rehearse here. And because I kept it, I needed a place to rehearse.
Yeah.
And it had a PA and stuff. Long story short, I wind up with all 10,000 square feet of the building. I'm moving room to room, floor to floor, building with my buddy who's a construction guy, but him and I are doing it like old school.
Yeah.
You know, there was a carpet mill next door. So we're getting the carpet, and we're just kind of, we're doing it. You know, we're doing it. He, metal studs, drywall, whatever. So I'm in a position where, okay, this is happening. You know, I mean, the chili peppers are there, and, there's body counts there. There's bands. It's happening. It's I'm tied into a couple management companies, whatever. So the time comes where they're selling the building, and I'm getting to that point where I'm tired of leasing. So I go looking for a building, and I'm figuring, okay, I find a building. It's 6,000 square foot classic red brick building. It's actually right down the street from Joe's Garage, Frank Zappa. It was Frank Zappa's place. The long and short of it is the guys who own the building hate each other. They're retired. The building's basically empty. They're electrical contractors. The back half of it was like the warehouse where you drive your trucks through, and they hated each other. Okay. So I cut a deal with them. I knew I had business because I'd been in business for 3-4 years anyways. So I knew it's not like I'm starting a new business.
Right.
So the deal was, I guess I gave them like 10 grand as a down payment. And if I didn't, it's a lease option to buy. So after 2 years, if I didn't pick it up and buy it from them, they get my $10,000 and we continue with the lease. But I also had them where every month, like $500 out of my rent went to the down payment. Okay. I knew I was going in. I knew I wasn't leaving. And what it was a custom build. It took about 6 months to build.
Right.
Licensed, permitted, coded with the city. That's a whole different show. Oh my God. But I designed it. It had the curved walls going down the hallway, and it was beautiful. It was stunning. And I knew I wasn't going anywhere. I had the business. We're good. Okay. And you got to remember, those are in the days when buildings weren't $3 million. Okay. Right. So it was okay. But they did that. And then, so what happened is 2 years after it, it was time to, crap or get off the pot, as they say. And they told me at the time that they would carry the paper. They'd carry the loan. The interest rate wasn't great, but I didn't have to qualify. I didn't have to give up, my left testicle, and you know how that is to get a loan.
Right.
So basically,
bullshit.
Yeah. So 2 years in, after my $10,000 deposit, now you have to remember, those were the days where you could do transfers, like check transfers, and there was no percentage that they hit you with. It was a shell game. And that's how I built the place. Borrow money from here. When it was coming due, I'd borrow more money. And I was writing checks like it was just going out of style, but they weren't hitting you with those fees back then. It was the greatest thing in the world. So 2 years come, I basically go to the escrow company, write a check for $66.34, and I own the building.
That's crazy.
And then what happens is, a year after that, interest rates go way down. So I refi, like I'm established, I'm there, I'm the guy, everything's cool. And, you get the cheap loan, and now I'm off their books of, 10% interest or whatever they were charging me, which at the time was not ridiculously high. Right. Those were not the days of 3% mortgages. Right. But, refinanced a year or two later, and I've refinanced 1 or 2 more times over the years, and it's 27 years now.
Awesome.
Still going strong. It lets me do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have to worry about, oh man, do I really got to play my Sharona tonight?
Right.
For $50 and some like really crappy food. I started off from the beginning. I didn't want to be in that position. I knew exactly, I wanted to be a rock star. Okay. That's plain and simple. That's the truth. I wanted to be a freaking rock star, and I wasn't going to get there by relying on other things. I could go to work and make so much more money. And I was working 4 jobs at a time. I was working at a collection agency in the office, not the guy on the phone. Right. I did construction with my buddy. We worked on Martin Mole's house and a few other houses in Santa Barbara. Some really nasty insulation stuff. I mean, I've done like some really nasty crap.
Right.
But then I'd come home and rehearse with 3 bands, and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to Santa Barbara, and do it all over again.
Yeah.
It's
one of the things that you brought up in another interview, which I thought was, because I talk about it often, is people's perception of what's going on. We've talked to many. We're talking about, we had, the #1 music video on MTV. We had this. We sold, this many million albums, and you were still living in a studio apartment off of Hollywood and La Brea. Yeah.
Yeah, but doing a bunch of blow.
Yeah. But like you were mentioning, like playing. How do you go from playing? Like it's got to mess your mind up a little bit from going from 30,000 to 12.
Yeah. I always thought there should either be a series on that or a book. the psychological aspects. You know, my big thing was I always thought in the back of my mind, I just needed one shot. I just need one thing, and I won't go buy 4 Ferraris, and I won't get the new trophy wife, and you know, I won't. I give me one thing. I was raised a certain way. I know what it's like. I don't, you know, I'm not that Steve Martin thing, you know, like the poor white kid in the ghetto. Or, yeah, I wasn't raised like that. My parents, I got everything I needed. I didn't get everything I wanted.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yep.
But I realized the value of the dollar, and you do the Warlord Manor thing for a few years.
Yeah.
You get that whole idea of like, I'm doing this because I love this, and this is what gets me through. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's all about that. But I always thought, man, just one shot. Just one shot. I'll make this work. I won't blow it. I won't screw it up. You know, I won't buy a soybean farm or a soccer team or whatever these guys have done that have lost money.
Yeah, I was a special effects guy for years and years and did tour consulting and all that stuff. So you'd see a band come in and they'd be newer, maybe first, second album, and you'd go, "Oh my God, dude, this music video, the effects budget's $500,000. The music video's got to cost them $2.1 million. They're never going to pay this music video off."
Exactly.
You know, they don't know. They don't, you know, like, aren't people talking to these guys? You know, and now I think it's great that there's no money for music videos.
Yeah.
It challenges people to be creative.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because I look at like the Fates Warning Eye to Eye with Mark Rezica, who was like the hot guy at the time. We just did Skid Row or whatever. Yeah. And I think that budget was close to 100,000. There was wardrobe, catering, and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's any better than Nothing Is Over. That was done basically for $7,000.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I never understood it. You know what I mean? Like, why did we have to recreate a friggin' garbage dump for Aerosmith on a soundstage? We could have just went to one.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I hear you.
It was crazy. And then everyone, I mean, the last people to reach in the musician's pocket is the musician.
Yeah, absolutely. I always thought that just, you know, give me one shot, because, you know, the budgets right now, I could get creative with a lot of money and put it in the bank, which Fates Warning used to do all the time. Those were some good days where we'd get advances, and we were smart, and we would like, okay, you know, let's just record the drums at Zonder's place. Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, we don't need to go, you know, camp out at $1,000 a day so a guy can play the bass.
Right.
You know? Yeah. So we kind of got smart with that kind of stuff. And it's just kind of the way I was raised too.
So Mark, just out of curiosity, the money aspect of it. So if you were offered an opportunity to play with a band that's huge, the money would just come pouring in, but you hated the music, you hated the genre, whatever. Could you see doing that because the money's coming in, or you just couldn't sell yourself to do that?
Well, you have to ask yourself, how bad is the music?
Well, let's just say, in my case, let's just say it's hip hop music, and
I
can't stand hip hop music. And you said, man, I could be with this hip hop band and make a ton of money, but I hate that music.
Well, your studio does a large amount of business with hip hop and rap.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because they don't know me and I don't know them. You know, I mean, yes, The Game was in there, and Ed Sheeran or whatever that little redhead kid's name is, you know, and I remember Ice-T used to always be there, and he was like super cool and stuff, but he was doing body count, so it wasn't even hip hop. The answer to your question is probably, for the simple fact of I have 2 kids, you know, they're going to be 19. Myself, if it was just me, probably not, because I'm really at that stage, and I have been for a lot of years. As long as I have a place to play and I got nice gear to record, you know, to make me sound the way I want, and I don't want for much, you know, I really don't. You know, I drive a Tesla Model 3, you know, a $30,000 car that I love. You know, unless someone's going to give me a Ford GT, I mean, I don't need a Ferrari. I don't need a Lamborghini. I'd be scared to death that I'm going to nick the thing. For me, myself, no. But for my family and my wife and that kind of thing, probably. And it wouldn't be like a lifetime commitment. You know, a lot of that gig, though, I'll be honest with you, a lot of that gig depends how you're treated. Okay.
Right.
If I was treated with respect and appreciated and you do your thing and everything, but if it turned into like this whipping boy thing,
Right.
and it was awkward, no.
Yeah, if it's a cool professional situation, that's obviously it's going to raise your profile and everything else that you've done. It's a no
exactly, you know. But I'll be very truthful. I am that guy that I am not that household name. Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't played in the band that's a household name, but because of what I've done and the way I've kind of stayed true, and maybe it's the passion, you know, my companies, and they're the best. DW, you cannot tell me there's a better drum company. No way in hell.
Yeah.
Not even close. Zelgen, not even close. Sorry. You know, Vader and Remo, not close. You know,
Right.
the microphones and the company that I use, they're new. Are they Neumanns? No, but I like them better, and they give me what I want. So when it comes to that thing, am I getting paid? No. And what's really cool, though, are my companies, they don't pay. You know, Sabian pays for the Dave Weckl line and the Neil Peart line. That's why guys run around.
Sure.
You see guys running around at companies because they're paying. It's not, you're going to tell me you're going to go to Ludwig these days because they have the best sounding drums?
Right.
Hell no. Maybe in the 70s and 60s.
Right.
But no, you know, you're not going to like the newfound Gretsch, you know, that is not the old Gretsch.
Right.
You know, or the best one that I see is when I see guys playing D drum. Have you ever seen those drums?
Yeah.
Nothing against them. Hey, whatever works for you, but you're getting paid. We all know you're getting paid, and that's cool. That's cool. You know, I get it. That no problem. You know, but my companies are just absolutely fantastic. So it's not even like I would take a gig to get more free stuff. You know what I mean, or whatever.
Right.
But just from a family point of view, yes, I would. But if it was just me for some reason, however it shakes out, if it was just me,
Yeah.
you know. But on the other hand, I would play for free or come out of pocket to play with a band that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, you really think Warlord makes any money on tour?
Right.
No. You know, it's more of, you know.
All right, give us a band that you would love to be playing with, or past, present.
Kansas. And I've talked to Phil, you know, but because we're good friends, and they had their drum tech slide in there. Marillion. I'd love.
Oh, great band. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to. I'm not really. Rainbow. You know, I came close maybe a little bit with Graham Bonnet, but it wasn't Richie Blackmore and it wasn't John Lord. Trust me, it wasn't those guys.
Yeah.
And you know, that kind of thing. As much as I love Tower of Power, I would not step even 10 feet from that drum throne. No way in hell. I couldn't do it. Those other bands I mentioned, I could play. I have all the confidence that I know that music so inside and out. But Garibaldi's drumming is just too. No. I'd never figure that out. But no, those kind of bands I'd want to play with.
Yeah. So there's this story, I don't know if it's true or not, that my friend always used to tell me. So, you know, he had been maybe a juvenile delinquent, a little bit older than maybe a juvenile delinquent. And so he spent time being special guest of the California penal system at the same time as Ted Turner, who was also in his wing, and two guys from Tower of Power. And he said the jam sessions that they used to have on the I'm like, could you imagine, like, you know?
Oh, no. It's funny. There's a lot of guys that are rock guys and everything like that. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the Bay Area. So I got Tower of Power. I don't know if you guys remember a band called Cold Blood with Lydia Pence, Down to the Bone. It was a horn band. It was kind of like a mellow tower, not mellow, but a chick singer Tower of Power. But Tower of Power is just so intense. You know, I got the early Doobie Brothers. You know, I got Montrose. I got, you know, stuff that just like blow your mind. But a lot of like rock guys don't know, like when you venture out into other things. Okay, I'm not into Tower of Power. I mean, I am, but like you might not be into it. But listen to what the hell's going on.
Right.
I'm a bass player, and man, I miss Rocco Prestia, man. What a
absolutely
monster.
Well, him and Garibaldi. I mean, come on. You know, the thing that goes under the radar that people don't understand. All those great guys that we talked about. Okay, Tommy Aldridge, Cozy Powell, Ian Pace. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
They're all, not that they can't do other things, but they're all playing kind of what they're all playing together. They're playing, the same thing. Garibaldi just revolutionized the living daylights out of what happens with your hands and your feet and how it pushes and shoves and moves around. That it's just, and it takes time. You don't come up with that overnight. You can sit down for a week and start nailing double bass stuff like it's going out of style. Yeah. But the Garibaldi stuff or the Afro-Cuban stuff that I was studying, just to kind of get away and incorporate other things into it to make me sound more like me, Stuart Copeland kind of stuff. Same thing.
Oh, another great drummer.
Yeah.
A whole different thing, but great.
Yeah, exactly. But just really, really happening, like amazing, so.
Yeah, it always baffled me. Like Fred, for instance, we're trying to get him to break out of just the heavy metal thing. So we've been like, introducing him to like some soul music, some blues, stuff like that. But it, back in the day when we were playing in bands, man, like I came up with, my dad was a performer, so I came up, I hear all the great jazz guys and torch singers and everything and horns, and being from Chicago with the blues and the Chicago horns. I mean, there's a difference between Chicago horns and Memphis horns, and oh my God, I thought that big band music was the original heavy metal. Because in attitude, it's the same thing.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to this question at one point, but my absolute most amazing performer I've ever seen in my life. And I saw Sinatra. My parents took us to Sinatra. I saw Hair at the Orpheum in San Francisco in the nude scene. The most and I've seen them all. I saw the Rainbow Tour with in 77 or 76 with the Rainbow with 400 people at the San Jose Civic. I've seen quite a bit. The most impressive performer I've ever seen in my whole life is Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, he busts out Bojangles. I mean, it's over, man. It's like the top hat and the tap dancing. He's an amazing drummer too, that he doesn't do in his live show, but just that thing, the way he sang Bojangles, I mean, and the top hat and the bowler. I mean, he was the most impressive performer. And I saw Frank Sinatra, and he was cool. My Frank Sinatra stories were at the Civic or the Circle Star Theater in San Carlos, which is outside San Francisco. It's in the Round. Okay. And I'm sitting there, and his opening comedian is Patrick Henry, the guy that always used to be with him, comedian, whatever. I'm thinking I'm like 15 or something like that. The jokes are going over my head. And I'm sitting on the aisle, and all of a sudden he's done, and I look up, and there's this guy about 6'4", 220 standing right next to me. And Frank comes down the aisle, and he has his bodyguards all the way down. And I mean, he was cool, but Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah, Sammy was cool. Yeah. I got to meet him when he was an older guy, and when I was working in LA and stuff, some kind of whatever in film, some kind of event, and you'd meet all these people. I worked on this documentary, The First 100 Years of Film. So I got to meet all, like, I had lunch with Jackie Cooper on steps. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm having lunch, I'm sharing a sandwich with this guy, and he's just telling me all these stories of the golden era, like,
no, absolutely. That's awesome.
All the crappy shit that he did. And as a director, he was a big director at the time. But then you hear of all these, like the tap dancing brothers. Like we got to meet those guys and interview them. And at 85, they're still doing it. It was like, is there going to be a Britney Spears out there at 72 years old?
Well, no, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I always say, okay, look who's playing the big places: rock bands, Styx, Kansas, Foreigner, Def Leppard, all this kind of thing. When's that Matchbox 20 tour coming around?
Right. We talk about the vacuum that's going to happen here shortly with all the basically legacy fades away at some point.
Father Time's undefeated, as they say.
Yeah, we just lost Rick Derringer yesterday.
Exactly. No.
And, and artist development. There is no artist development.
No, there isn't.
No.
There isn't. It's zero. I blame that on a couple things. You can blame it on the record company, but then also you can blame it on the buying public.
True.
Let's face it. I don't care what you think of Lars's drumming, but he had that Napster shit nailed.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
He had that nailed, and that kind of contributed to the killing of the whole music business.
So we had the software that I was working on, okay? and it would enable you back then to jam over the phone, like you would record before you had your when you're doing the first album on $800 and a crack field producer. So like you'd jam over the phone. That's how you used to do it, right? So we were replicating that, and you could play on a 28.8, you know, a little bit of latency, but you could still work.
Okay.
So we're doing all this thing. We have G3 in different studios, and the vice president of so-and-so music company comes in. I'm not going to say Sony, but you know, so comes in and is like, oh, this is great. Da, 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 da. Boom. Everything's working fine. Oh, you could jam remotely with all these, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, and we're thinking, oh, you could do multiple tours. You could have one band in 4 different cities at the same time, interact and all this stuff. And he goes, so how do you win? What? This guy was like 73 years old. He had no idea what a computer was practically. You know, this is in, you know, the late 99, you know, so like that's why the music died, because he had these guys running it who had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, no idea. And now there is literally no music business other than the few guys who are actually helping hold on to our music genre. Like
Brian's still doing it, you know.
I have to say, you know, after God, when was Metal Massacre 2? 82-ish?
82.
We're getting into a close, 40 some odd years, and that I've known Brian and stuff like that, and always treated his bands completely fairly. You might not like to hear that. Hey man, you only sold 3 records, so I don't owe you any money. You don't want to hear that. Yeah. But I always marveled that Brian gave, and I used to do a lot of drum tuning with Bill Matoyer back in the early days when he was banging out these bands. And what these bands didn't realize, and what bands of today don't realize, is that Brian would take these bands that really didn't deserve to be in a studio. They really didn't. They didn't. And this was a nice studio. This was track record. This was real. This was not, you know, like, you know, some goofy computer and a blue microphone or whatever. This was like, you know, a Trident console or a Neve or an SSL, you know, and it was real. And we'd do these records, and then these bands would like have the balls to like bitch later that, oh, Brian screwed us on the money, he didn't pay us the royalties. I go, wait a minute. First of all, you're in a great studio that costs money, so you signed the deal. So well, you got to recoup. You're selling 5 records, pal. Okay, your friends bought it. That's it.
Yep.
You know? But Brian did amazing things for bands early on, and even to this day, what they just did to step up to, you know, bring all the guys from around the world to do the videos, because they thought it was really important to have real videos, which it is,
right?
And the press and the photo and all that kind of stuff, and the marketing that we're doing and the push that we're doing. They're invested. This isn't the days of like, okay, here's your little cute recording budget. We'll let you know when the album comes out, and if you want to buy some extra copies, it's $6 a piece.
Yeah,
that's not what it is. And I remember sitting there at one of these dinners with Ray, and it was one of those 1990 dinners that nobody gets anymore. It was the real dinner. It was, you know, the label was treating us really well. And Ray goes, man, they don't even do this for Fates Warning anymore. Right. You know? And I said, well, maybe they see something.
Oh, and I have to say right up front, Ray has one of the best voices of all time.
Yep.
And to hear him do different textures and flavors was really cool as a Ray fan. And I saw him live with Queensryche 3, 4, right before the plague.
Yeah, that was with the Fates Warning thing.
Yeah. And actually Joe played in that show. And Joe's a good friend of the show. So hey, Joe, what's happening, man? I'm sure he's watching. But I mean, Fates Warning, I mean, that's one of the, you know, if it may not be like people may not put it up by Iron Maiden, and I don't know, man. I beg to differ, man. You guys are up there with Queensryche and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. I mean, from our perspective, as far as the importance of your music, absolutely, you guys are up there.
You know those Metal Massacre tapes. I mean, that's where I found all that stuff. That's where I found Fates back in the day. You know?
We try to make the show and we react to like being in a record store at the import section in 1986.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I hear you. No, I hear you.
And you know what's wild is like, you know, the 15-year-old me. If you would have told me that Metal Blade would still be going, you know,
right
in my 50s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. And Brian, I mean, God bless Brian. I mean, for what he built, you know.
No, everybody that works
Yeah.
there, you know, from Tracy and Rick
Yeah.
to Ryan to all those guys, you know, they've had to put up with my crap, not knowing the social media, and they've taught me how to do it and do the posts and all this kind of stuff. And you know, again, I'm not going to say it was a no-brainer, but they're the ones who I knew. Put it this way, I've had experience with other labels, so I know what that's like.
Right.
But I have Tracy's phone number. You know, I have Brian's email. You know, I know how to get in touch.
They're accessible to you. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could tell me to blow it out my ass, which is fine. But at least I know that I can get in touch with them. Where other labels, we've had that experience of like, hey guys, I haven't heard from the label for 3.5 weeks. How about you? Well, yeah, the record just came out last month. I mean, you know, no, they've all. I always like something that you know what it is that you're dealing with.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Let me know.
Yeah, exactly. They're not blowing smoke.
Yeah.
They're not playing hide and go seek. There's no games going on. I push like nobody's business. And they just told me, you know, that's a great idea, Mark, but we just can't afford to do that. You know, the return on that, they'll explain it to me. The return on that is not going to be, it's not going to work. Here's a great story. And this just shows you what Metal Blade and how much, love is a word, but like respect, or how much I appreciate it and I get it from a business point of view. We have our budget. We're doing our thing. We're running a little thin. You know, I got Hugh Sign doing the album cover. As much as he's working with me, it's not $1.95.
Yeah.
So I go to Tracy and I ask her, I go, hey, you know, is it possible, you know, to get a couple extra bucks? And she goes, well, what we'd rather do is spend that money and really get everybody out here and work the other end of the promo to really promote it, instead of just giving you money that you can, you know, go stick up your nose or put in your gas tank or whatever, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you were honest with me and straight up. And I'm thinking, will this really happen though? Is this kind of a soft kind of thing? Okay, cool. You explained it to me. I get it. I'm an adult. I get it. Yeah. And then when they bring everybody out, 5 days, 2 big full-blown photo shoots, a real deal video shoot that we get. Yeah. Oh no, it was. And I'm thinking in the back, but I'm thinking 2 things. I'm thinking, this is awesome. This is great. This is not a gift, Mark. They're not like, hey, Mark's a nice guy.
Oh, shit, what's the recoup?
It's not, the recoup doesn't bother me. That's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking they're in it now. They're in it. They can't just say, hey, Mark, this was really cool. See ya. They need to recoup their investment. We're doing everything and anything that we can. So we're living up to it. We're not just like fading away and saying, hey, call us when the Maiden tour starts.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're in it,
they
get, I hate the expression, but skin in the game.
You know, now you're A-tier marketing.
Yeah, it's exactly. Now we're at that point where now it's getting real. You know, it's not, you know, and a million labels do the old, here's your budget. We know we can recoup this, even if we don't do anything and even if it falls flat. So I'm very excited. I was more excited about the fact that they're investing in us as compared to just hey, this is really cute and it's a nice dinner, you know.
And also putting a package together, like liner notes, and like we talk about all the time. Part of the show is about men's mental health through music and fart jokes. And I always tell people, if they're having a rough time, pick an album, man. One of your top 10, put it on the first song, let it flip it over, play it again, put your phone in another room, but listen to an entire album. No matter what it is, you're going to feel better at the end of it.
No, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in that full package thing. Yeah. You know, it had to be a full package, and they were supportive of that. They didn't say, hey, Mark, you only got 2 pages for a booklet. They didn't say, hey, no digipack. They didn't say, oh, 1 vinyl. You know, there's 4 technical vinyls going on. You know, it was done the right way. Absolutely. And they've been great all the way down. Everybody that I've been involved with.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and I like that you're continuing the theme with the alligator.
Absolutely. The alligator and the zipper. You know, I promise I have the idea for the 3rd record in my head. There's no animals. There's no teeth. It's going to be a touch of a little different departure. It's interesting, though, because the first album, I just gave Hugh the name of the band. He wanted lyrics and melody lines. And I said, well, basically, we don't have any, but I don't want to give you that because I don't want the album cover to reflect one song. I just don't like that. So he popped that one back in about half an hour. The second one, I was working on the idea with my friend Mark Cubbage, where we were just bouncing the ideas around with the names and the different things. And he kind of just stumbled across the old alligator. And he actually, with the zipper, he actually went down to, and he's in Florida, to the alligator pits and shot a bunch of pictures. We're thinking we'd maybe start there. And that's where the inside vinyl and CD with the yellow thing with the alligator and biting the guy's butt, that's a picture of a sign that he took, and it's just circled.
Yeah.
But just all the small little things, you look on the back album cover, and that little thing is in the corner of the album cover too.
Yeah, I like that people are still in the album covers and doing original album cover art. Oh, and what do I have here? I have something that wasn't chosen for an album cover, but there you go.
That could have been.
Right.
Yeah.
But they chose the other two. So yeah, support your local artist, no matter what they do. Music, painting, drawing.
Yeah.
Keep us going, because pretty soon none of us are going to be left.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do with all this? What's your view on AI? Sorry about that.
It doesn't kind of affect me, but also you have to remember, you guys don't know, but I was the guy who went kicking and screaming into the computer saying, "Oh, I'm just going to keep my digital gear. I'm not getting, or my analog gear. I'm not getting into this." And good old Nick Van Dyke had to force a computer on me years and years and years and years and years ago, where it was dial-up, and it was a screen that was green. But I still find it. I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to see it really like make an album like what we just did.
Yeah.
It might be able to come close, but I especially think when you come to drums and the certain nuances that, and again, only maybe a certain amount are going to be able to hear it, but there's a certain nuance that every drummer plays. You take 6 different drummers, high caliber drummers, and have them play something, it's all going to sound different.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way they attack the snare, the way they maybe pull it a little back, it's how their heart beats and it moves things.
Right.
So I think from a drum point of view, I'm not too worried. Vocals and lyrics, I don't know.
that it might be able to pull off, but
yeah, you never know. If you get that, if you take that but put it in the hands of a real engineer that will mix that vocal and really do all those special things to take it to a new level, because and I know it all starts with a raw vocal that, not that it sounds like crap, but it's a raw vocal.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's a raw vocal. And by the time you hear it on the album, you're like, it sounds like it was AI'd,
Right.
But it's just delays, compression, reverbs, all the little tricks, and there's tricks. Everybody's got their tricks to how to manipulate sound so it's pleasant to the ear. So I'm not sure how far AI is going to get in my lifetime.
Right.
It's nice to just type something in like, "Hey, why doesn't this work on my washing machine?" And boom, there it is, and there, and that works. I can see it wreaking havoc in, like my wife's an attorney, and just how people think that like that is the law, but it's not. And they take that and run with it. And
emotion isn't law. People get those two things mixed up.
Exactly. Oh no, absolutely. Oh.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's involved in a writing. Vince and I both have written a book here or there, but how many times you go on, right, Vince, and it says, "Do you want me to finish this for you, or this line?" I go, "No, I don't want the computer finishing my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll put bad or good."
Yes, I meant to use the F word.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what I can't stand.
Changes everything.
This word might be offensive. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I've never even delved into it that far. Kind of thing. All I know is I don't like it when it auto corrects you the wrong way.
Oh yeah.
It's not that smart. You'd think that you type that word in weird spelled because that's the way it is more than one time, and it would grab it and know it that next time around. Don't do that.
Oh, for sure.
But it doesn't. So I don't know. I don't know.
Or I'm just glad you're not trying to say duck.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just glad I'm not 25 and trying to be a musician these days. It's just a different ballgame. I'm very happy and thankful of the era that I grew up in music wise.
Yep.
The other bands that were around, the big bands that were around.
Yeah.
And just that opportunity to live that thing of like in the warehouse, and the guys, you're a band,
Yeah.
We did, it would have been great if we sold 1 million records. It would have been great if we went on to the big tours and all this kind of stuff. And you got to be thankful for what you have, but I ain't even close to done. I haven't even had the shot at the brass ring. Just give me the one shot.
We were just talking about autocorrect. Okay, this is my text to Jason yesterday. Autocorrect killed comedy. Like,
Yeah.
screws up half of my jokes to Jason.
Well,
Oh no, absolutely.
well,
You
you
know,
know.
it's funny.
Oh, go ahead,
Jason.
Jason. No, I was just to sort of sum up everything, with this band. What I love about A to Z, Mark, is that for musicians and music fans, especially prog music fans, I mean, it's got all the musicianship and the technicality that you want in a prog band, but then, I mean, there's these fantastic hooky choruses, great harmonies, and I mean, that's like a great combination. That's
no listening fatigue, by the way.
Yeah,
I listened to the
Oh,
entire
no.
album.
This may be the
from-
perfect band for me. I'm just saying that, and you know what?
It is for me.
I'm gonna say that this is my, having the us getting a little sneak peek of it. This is my favorite album in probably 5-6 years. Of new albums that I've heard. Yeah, and I'm not blowing smoke. I mean, I really mean that. It's
No,
it's
I
fantastic.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
That kind of was the goal. My big thing
Yeah.
was, you look at my career and on my headstone at this point in the game, it really should read critical acclaim is overrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great. And I I'm thankful for it and all this. And I appreciate the fans. Believe me, I do. But I did the work. I know that sounds
Right.
like
I mean,
egotistical or whatever. It's not like nothing was given.
Right.
Yeah.
I because people sit around and go, "Oh, Mark, you got this band, and you're doing this." It's like, man, you weren't around when there was like 5 of us at Bob's Big Boy eating off a salad bar plate.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, olives do go bad. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate all the fans, and just like I'm a fan of other bands, and I don't know the stories behind Marillion, and I don't know the stories behind Deep Purple, and I'm sure they've got stories,
Yeah.
but just that whole thing of getting out of kind of like the underground, and I don't have 50 years to do a Metallica or a Dream Theater where you're pounding it to death on what you're doing. That was Warlord. That's what Warlord was supposed to be. That's what Fate's Warning was supposed to be. We were doing it our way. We were younger. We had the time, and it's like, okay, let's do this. And hopefully something clicked. I mean, I was thinking, and there's no reason that Parallel shouldn't have been a huge album.
It was. I mean, it was fantastic.
I know, amazing, but it didn't get us to a bigger budget. It didn't get us to a bigger show. It did for about 2 months. We went from playing 200-seat clubs to playing the Palace here in LA that hold like 1,500.
Yeah.
And girls were showing up.
Right.
Oh,
and not pencil pocket holders with the pencils and the broken glass kind of thing.
Yeah.
The whole point of this band is I wanted to play the music that I loved.
Yeah.
I'm not a prog guy. I'm really not.
Right.
I was raised on Motown, Tijuana brass, the soundtrack to West Side Story, the Fifth Dimension, that kind of stuff. The Monkees.
Yeah, like is this generation ever gonna have, a Day on the Green, a Cal Jam, a US Fest, like classic, just unbelievable all day shows where it wasn't all about the almighty dollar. I think
that's a tough one. I'll never forget it was 75, 76 called The British Are Coming, Oakland Coliseum, Bill Graham, Dan the Green. It was Gary Wright with Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
It was Fleetwood Mac when Buckingham Nicks first joined that first White Album.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was some guy, I forgot his name, Peter something. I think he had a career. Peter Frampton. Yeah. It was Frampton Comes Alive. Then it was Dave Mason.
That little record, Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah,
right?
that little record.
Yeah.
And then, Dave Mason, one of my all-time favorites, and then Robin Trower when Bridge of Sighs came out.
Yeah.
The British Are Coming. You tell me.
What a player he is, too. Robin Trower. Yeah.
What an album that is. That's like the first Montrose record to me, where it's like basically close to a perfect record, kind of like Van Halen 1, the first Van Halen record.
Oh, my God.
The same
yeah,
kind
we
of thing.
started doing this thing, best albums of all time, just picking like band. Okay, Appetite, that was that album's amazing. Back in Black's amazing. Ace Frehley solo, like okay. Ozzy, What's Ozzy's best album to you? In Sabbath or in Ozzy?
Never a Sabbath fan. I'm going Rainbow
neither.
Rising. I'm
Me
going
neither.
Rainbow Rising. That ends it.
Thank you.
Or Heaven and Hell. You can't beat that.
Right.
Mob
Oh,
Rules,
yeah.
Heaven, Hell,
Okay.
Rainbow Rising.
So
Long Live Rock and Roll.
I'm in kind of like an argument, musical political argument with these. Okay. I think Deep Purple is a bigger influence looking back now than Black Sabbath in hard rock and heavy metal. Absolutely. I think Deep Purple out influences Sabbath, and not in a bad way.
I think it does in the respect of the keyboard guitar combo where Sabbath was the riff.
Yeah.
Tony Iommi.
Oh, Iommi's a riff monster. Yeah.
But here's the funny thing. You talk about Ozzy. There ain't no one running around trying to sound like Ozzy. But there's 20 guys I could name that are running around trying to sound like Dio.
Right.
You know? You can tell me Ronnie Romero doesn't sound like Ronnie James Dio?
Right.
You're going to tell me that Dino doesn't
Dino
sound like
Dino's
Ronnie James Dio? He ain't trying to sound like Ozzy.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's trying to sound like Ozzy. You know,
Right. That's true.
like Dio.
Right. I'm just bringing it up because, he's doing the last show supposedly. So we're talking about doing best of albums. But Dio, we broke down Dio, his career album by album, song by song. And
love him. I miss that guy, man.
Just amazing.
And one of the nicest cats ever, too. I worked with him and, on the Dehumanizer tour, did some live B-sides, years ago, and got to spend a little time with him. He was fantastic.
Oh, Mark froze.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, Mark, let's see. We're going to try to, okay, guys, keep talking.
Yeah.
Let's see if this will work.
There he is.
You're back. Technology.
Yeah.
You see what happens when you start talking about Ozzy? The whole thing goes down.
Right, exactly. Ronnie's like, no. Absolutely.
No, another one I'd stick up there too is Leftover at Your Kansas.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I will never ever forget the day I was, for the very short, brief college career that I had, standing there in San Jose State in the dorms, and some kid put on Icarus, Born on the Wings of Steel, and I'd never heard Kansas before.
Yeah.
I just went, what the?
Right. Uh-oh. Yeah, Born on the Wings of Steel. Yeah, Kansas. You're close to one of the guys in Kansas, aren't you?
I know Phil pretty well. There's a funny story where we're both with the same drumstick company with Vader.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I get this email from Phil, and we've never really talked before. And he says, Mr. Zonder, I'm really sick and tired as I go through the internet finding about people talking about how you're the most underrated drummer. He goes, I'm the most underrated drummer. So besides being shocked that he wrote me, I write him back and I said, with all due respect, Mr. Leehart, when you have songs like A, B, C, and D, you're not eligible for the underachieving people. He's actually been a really good help managing this band because he manages Kansas for 40 years.
Yeah.
And the greatest quote that he ever gave me was, and I don't know if you guys have ever talked to him, but kind of soft and mellow, kind of a mellow guy. And he says, Mark, some guys just aren't manageable.
That's true, though.
It's true that you got to get rid of them.
Yeah.
He told me some great Kerry Livgren stories, and just he's had his hands full over the years. He's had the girlfriends and the wives coming at him like, why isn't he on the cover of this magazine? Wait, whatever. Yeah. Great guy, just a great guy.
So I'm at this place that exchanges a monetary compensation for my time, right? And this younger guy in his late 30s comes up to me. He goes, V, come here. And he has this kid with him, and he was like 20. Tell him what you told me. He goes, yeah, I went and saw AC/DC. I'm like, oh, awesome. Right on. How was it? Oh, yeah, there was a 15-minute guitar solo. And what? I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, are you literally complaining about Angus Young's 15-minute guitar solo? Like, you're an idiot. No wonder you play jazz guitar. Like, you're at an AC/DC show. What else are you gonna get? I couldn't believe someone was actually complaining that there was a guitar solo.
Yeah, it's interesting because when like you were mentioning, when those bands are gone,
who's going to fill the shoes?
They're not.
Yeah,
they're not.
Right.
You know, my kids aren't. You know, they're not players. They're not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, there's bands coming up that are great, but can they afford to swing it financially? Are they, going to get paid?
Oh, and speaking of guitar, I'll just interject this: the guitar work on this record is,
Oh yeah,
my
yeah,
God.
Simone.
fantastic.
Yeah,
guitar
we
work on
were
it.
gonna ask you because there's so much
The
incredible
solos,
talent
the
coming out of
solos alone are
yeah,
just
Unbelievable.
so much
Yeah.
talent coming out of Italy, and you got one in Simone Moleroni.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
Besides the fact that he mixes the records too.
yeah.
There's unbelievable. One of those guys. He reminds me a lot of Bill Samas from Warlord, where not playing style and everything like that, but never plays a bad note. And I don't mean a bad note like it's a wrong note. I mean just doesn't play a wrong note melodically. And
Right.
Yeah.
he's that kind of guitar player and he totally reminds. He's got his own thing. There's no doubt. He's got his own thing. He's a little bit more shreddy than like Gary Moore, Lukather, and Neil Schon.
Sure.
But that thing of like they start playing and you almost know what they're playing next without them you hearing it, because it's like a singer. A real good singer, know where that melody line's going because they just know where to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
As much as the lead playing, I think, is just absolutely drop dead, kick your ass from an emotional, bending point of view, as well as the shred. The little things that he puts in the background, the little picking patterns, little counter to what Nick was playing, but not a lead, but just like a little bit
accents and things.
Yeah. Very Toto-esque.
There's new sounds coming out of all these cats who are playing guitar in Italy, man. I don't know what's going on over there. It's the pasta or something.
There's something in the water over there.
Killing it.
But the thing I'd like to think that all these guys, as much as they play in their other bands, and their other bands have definitely different niches and different styles and everything like that, I think they really came together on this in a very accessible. Because if you go to listen to a lot of these other guys' bands, it's not as accessible.
It's not cohesive.
Yeah, it's that, but it's also not focusing on kind of like the mass, like like hit songs kind of thing, kind of harkening back in the day kind of thing. I mean, especially if you go see Vi, when Bino's playing with Vi, that's a whole different story. That's different. But no, the guitar playing Simone's playing is just absolutely amazing. I do think though the unsung hero of this record is Jimmy Waldo and the keyboards.
Yeah.
Because on that first record, the keyboards, Viv was that Genesis, Gentle Giant, kind of light and fluffy kind of keyboard, don't want to get too dirty kind of thing. And Waldo's just, like a gutter rat, in respect. It's a Hammond B3 through a Marshall with a Leslie boxed off and mic'd, and like he's not that guy that's out there and you're not going to hear him solo and you're not going to hear this, but that is so much of the heaviness of this record and the grit. He's like he's almost like the dirt that goes in your shoe between the socks and the shoe kind of thing.
I always bring that up. The good stuff always has dirt in the corners.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, absolutely. And the fact that he played so much more than what actually showed up on the record, and he was a total pro about it. And we knew. I said, "Hey, Jimmy, play all over the place." He said, "Yeah, we'll just figure it out at the end." And if I would have known Simone was going to play that much guitar, I would have had Jimmy come in more at the end. But the fact that these parts that Simone was coming up with really elevated the band. It really changed the sound, and it just wasn't a rhythm guitar playing in stereo and a bass and drums, and it was that counterpoint thing.
I mean, the solo on Fire Away, amazing. Crisp and clear solo for Running in Place. Raised vocals off the hook. The choir element that you dropped in there.
Hold on a second. Let's stop. Okay, we got to get this on. We got to get this.
Yeah.
Just so the guys will get off my ass. So you're talking about Running in Place.
Yes.
With the group chant per se.
Yeah, I called it the choir part. Yeah.
Okay, choir. What we did is I sent it out about a year and a half ago. Those are fans. I had fans.
Oh, wow.
I sent out a click track and a very simple vocal running and just cut it MP3. I don't care. Just get it back to me. I got about 80 of them back, I think. Awesome. And we used like 43 of them. Some of them were I got to say, some of them were really freaking weird. Dudes were like getting weird on me and stuff.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of like, dude.
Running in, please.
It was kind of the other way. It was like kind of that. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing
Cookie
Cannibal
Monster
Corpse or
Rock,
whatever.
as Fred calls it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we weren't doing that. So I had them do that, and everybody in the band kind of looked at me, and I go, dude, you don't think Def Leppard would do this?
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't think Guns N' Roses would do this? I mean, that
Yeah.
was just my idea.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
all I'm thinking in the back of my head is, wait till this happens live.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But no, those are the fans. Those are fans that send
Awesome.
stuff in.
What a
And
great
just-
idea.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
So
Of course,
Just
Def
because you're-
Leppard would do it. Just ask my 4 kids. Ooten, Gleeten, Glotten, Globin.
hey, whatever works. Whatever works.
Yeah.
A Worldless Prison. Sorry, I had to read my own writing.
Great.
Yeah.
Great song.
Great. Oh, dude. The intro bass line and the ambient intro is really, really cool.
Let me tell you.
Haunting, beautiful vocal on this.
Absolutely. Little story on that one quickly. Here's the difference. This is why we are a rock band and we're not a prog band.
Mhm.
That song and Chaotic Symphony, a prog band would have made it 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would have stretched the living daylights out. The bass player would have been asleep during the intro and the whole bit.
Right.
But we do really well where I didn't want to do that. And when we were coming up with those parts, it was like, no. We need to get out quicker. We're not dragging this on. And I think that whole thing is beautiful. But I think the most impressive part of that song is the way there's basically like 3 different hooks in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, some of the classic songs and not the Harken Back to Carry On My Wayward Son.
I
But
love to hear Ray's vocal cut across a piano.
That was amazing. I wanted, to be honest with you, I wanted a part in there where it dropped out, where it was just the vocal and the drums.
Oh,
But I got voted out.
yeah, because at 2 minutes, 2 seconds, it kicks in to the into something else, and that's also amazing. Like two different.
But it ramps really nicely without just stopping and going 1, 2, 3, 4 and banging into it.
Yeah.
And again, though, here you go. You got a quote proggy tune. You got the whole intro. You got this, kind of syncopated cool part. But that chorus, it's an AOR chorus.
Yeah,
and it releases.
absolutely. Yep.
It's all about the dynamics. If you have all this tension over here, but then when it hits the chorus and it releases,
it's got to go somewhere. Yeah.
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 And
Yep.
I think we do that really well.
Yeah. Oh,
like
totally.
Reaching out,
Yep.
solid. I can totally hear this on the radio like all day long. Like it makes sense that this would be on the radio.
You could use that for a fundraiser. You're reaching out, time,
Hey.
I love the keyboards though. I made Jimmy do it. I go, Jimmy, I know everybody does it, but you got to have that intro where it goes, kind of little John Lord thing. You got to do it. You have to do it.
The mid-song bass line into the guitar solo is really cool.
Yeah.
Really dug that.
And now I walk away. What a perfect ending to a beautiful album too.
Yeah.
Okay, mark my words on this one. Mark it down. I think that is the song. That's the silent lucidity for this band.
I agree.
If worked properly, if there's an MTV, no.
Yeah.
If you put out your singles, they got to be rockin' singles. You never put out a ballad unless you're in the 80s or the 90s in the beginning. So you got to come out with energy and power. Okay, it comes out. The record comes out. It's cool. Hopefully we're up and out on tour right away, and we get that out of the way, and we're playing. But that song, for some reason, I always keep coming back to it, where it's the boy girl. It's the power metal ballad of the 2025, but done 2025.
Right.
You have the whole, and I don't know anybody in this genre that's doing it, because I'm playing all that electronic stuff. There is nothing sequenced. That is all played. So when we can go play live, I can play it. I play it off the pads. I'm playing that thing. Ray sounds amazing.
Yep.
That opening line, don't tell me that's not Boys of Summer by Don Henley. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you have this kind of tripped out drum fill, and it goes into that home run chorus where it's not a lot of bands play with that much air and that much space and that much kind of openness where the vocal really shines.
Yeah.
Right.
If I was playing crap all over the place, it would cloud it all up.
Choke it out. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a time and a place where it punches and it hits.
Yeah.
And then it's got that classic second verse that's a little bit more up tempo with a backbeat in it.
Yep.
Leads stunning.
Absolutely.
And then it's kind of got a tumultuous kind of ending, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that if there was a time and a place that could be worked. I did have the video guy shoot that one.
Oh, awesome.
Made sure everybody, had that down so we could shoot that in case we got lucky and we could actually come out with a fourth video, because I don't know, for some reason I keep coming back to that song.
Yes.
Yeah. Now I walk away. That's a great way to wrap up an album for
Yeah.
sure. The Remedy, I love the hi-hat work on this one, and and the intro, and then of course the cymbal mastery again. Song has a really great groove. You can groove as a player, and a lot of people who play harder rock. I never understood, man, how people can play and they don't groove, man. Like, it's so weird to me.
Not everybody can swing, Vince. What do you want me to tell you?
Hey, I was born in Detroit. I don't think I need to say anything else.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of that comes from, I was raised, Motown. I mean, that's what was playing around my house.
Yeah.
And even Tijuana brass. My parents were totally into that heavy.
Huge in my house.
But I wasn't brought up on kicking double bass drums. I wasn't brought up hammering the living daylights. I got into that later. I had, and I can't play a riff now, but I had like 4 years of when I was a kid of full on just straight jazz, ride cymbal, hi-hat, improvising with the kick and the thing. I can't remember a thing.
Right.
But so that's where that feel comes from, that vibe, also the fact that I've always been a song guy, and that's all about the groove.
Right.
But no, I think you take a song like The Remedy, and there's not a band out there right now besides Steely Dan that's playing anything even remotely in that kind of influence, that you hear that. That's just not, hard rock 101 stuff going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny watching my son get on the kit the first time when he tried to play Charlie Watts.
Yeah, it's not as easy.
Right? Uh-huh.
No, there's nothing easy about it.
The Remedy, again, loving the use of space on not only this song but in the whole album. You guys
absolutely
appreciate and respect the space. Me and Jason were trained by Eddie Mashal, who won 5 Grammys with the Eagles, and he was all about space. And man,
absolutely,
people, because how many albums have you heard in the last 3 years where everything's in a big meatloaf right here in the mix?
Oh yeah. No, absolutely. I was always a big fan of that. If I gave it space, that means later on I can fill up that space somewhere else. Like it's the dynamics. It's just
you got to let it breathe.
But it also, there's a few times I do it on this record. I love doing that thing of dropping the bass out and dropping out the kick. So like when I Am Numb, when it does the re-entry and stuff and it's gone. So, but when I hit the kick, it's just like everything explodes. And then all of a sudden when Philip comes in, it's like, oh my God, it's just all about dynamics. It's really just that whole thing of dynamics that really.
My first note on I Am Numb, this will haunt me on the drum kit.
That's actually kind of one more of the, I don't want to say easy. It's not easy, but it's
no, but I mean, I'm just a meat and potatoes. I just play for fun. But for me, like, okay, I want to learn to play that. That's going to take me some time to learn that. And that's a great thing, to be inspired to want to learn a new song at 56 years old on the drum kit. I can
absolutely.
play BB King all day. You know what I mean?
Just keep practicing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's fun, man. My son thinks it's funny. He'll walk in the house at 3 a.m. and I'm playing in the living room.
Yeah.
But why not? Absolutely. The Chaotic Symphony. Amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I mean,
actually, that's the one where I actually played the congas on it. So they're over there in the corner, and I'm busting out all those Afro-Cuban lessons that I took. But again, just a super, super, super dynamic song. Bino's playing the actual cello.
That was awesome.
Thought, you tell me. And I had my friend Grant Kirkhope, who's actually a big time Mario Brothers composer guy, like a real deal guy. Yeah. I met him at my daughter's school when they were young, and we really hit it off. But he plays violin in that. Tell me that whole intro and stuff doesn't sound like Mike Oldfield and Tubular Bells.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But when I heard that and those lines, and I told Philip, dude, bust out the cello. Let's hear the cello, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, just another original song that could have went on for 12 minutes.
Right.
But it just moved part to part so nicely. And it's almost like 2-3 hooks in the same song,
Yeah, when Portnoy came back with Dream Theater and they released that, what was that first song? 13 and a half minutes or something?
Something, yeah.
Oh my God. Only they could do that, but holy cow, I'd be afraid.
Yeah, we do a Monday metal segment, me and V, and he wanted to do a Dream Theater song once, and I said, should I pack a lunch? This is gonna be a while, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. Hey, they got their fan base, they've worked it. They've they're the Metallica of that side of the genre. Of like sticking to your guns and grinding it out.
Metallica Black Album just went 20x platinum and 8x platinum on Master. I would have thought Master would have had more, but
boys, I'm gonna step out for 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
That's pretty impressive. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Jay.
No, absolutely. Well, they did it. You can say what you want.
Yeah.
But again, there's something about them that everybody loves because it's obvious.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't tell me that every 14, 16, 18, whatever year old kid, goes, man, Lars ain't no Dave Weckl. I mean,
right? They're the new Rolling Stones.
Yeah, they're a band. No one goes to see them. I mean, myself, I don't think you go, oh man, that guitar playing is amazing. Right. It's not that. It's this. It's the whole.
You're gonna have fun as hell. Yeah, we're gonna have a blast, dude.
Exactly, and that's great for them. Anytime anybody can make a dime in this business, I take my hat off to them.
Yeah, I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, I don't know why people dislike Taylor Swift. If she's selling 20 million albums or whatever it is, or 20 million files, that's good for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's good for business.
It's two different things. Do I like the music? No. Do I think it's campy? No. No, she's not one of the top 5 greatest guitar players of all time.
Oh my God.
But again, I don't own a Motley Crue record. I couldn't tell you. Well, I could tell you a song, but anybody that can make money in this business, I take my hat off to them. Yeah. You're doing something I'm not doing. You figured it out. God bless you. You know, but there is that separation there. I don't know why. The biggest money making machine I ever saw was the K-pop stuff. I took my daughter to the Forum to see Twice. It's all girl thing. Thank God it was the girl thing and not like the guy thing.
Right.
It was money making machine. Merch was. They were running out of merch at $70 a t-shirt. And they had venues all over the venue. Yeah. I mean,
we cover this band called Bandmade from Japan.
Oh, okay.
Huge. Half of our audience for this show is in Japan.
Okay.
So we get a lot of Japanese artists coming. We cover music internet. We don't care what it is as long as it's good. We'll go find it because we're looking for guitar based, new music. But it's amazing. And some of these fan bases are just
it's out of control. It's really crazy. I see the money that my daughter spends, and it's her money. She works, so God bless her.
Absolutely.
She's going to concerts at $500. I told her I wouldn't pay $500 to go see Moses. Okay. No. I go, no, no way. Sorry.
Yeah, like my oldest son, he works for he does production for EDM shows and stuff, right?
Okay.
And so my ex-wife, we're good friends, and we'll be talking. And she'll go, oh, da-da-da-da. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's rock and roll for her. She goes, oh, it's EDM. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Learning to Fly. I spaced out during this whole song, and I didn't write a damn thing because I was so focused on Ray's vocals on this song.
Cool.
Like I said, he's one of my favorite vocalists, but this song in particular on this album is the whole album vocally. It's great to see him do different stuff, but I really, really, really enjoyed his singing on Learning to Fly.
Yeah, I think on that song, as an album in general, I would like to think that Ray got very inspired by the music that he got.
Yes.
I know Ray very well. I kind of know how he works, and what motivates and what doesn't motivate. Mm-hmm. And I think he does very well, kind of freewheeling on his own, without someone on his shoulder. And the fact that, I think hopefully that just the music itself really inspired them. But it's interesting on that song, because when we were putting the music together, I thought that song had the coolest music. I just love that that verse, that tom pattern. It was a total Kansas ripoff kind of tom fill pattern that I came up with for that. And another big home run chorus. I love that lead at the end, and that was one of those ones I asked Simone just to repeat that lead line after Ray's singing as it's kind of going out the door.
Yeah.
But the coolest part of that, if you have the headphones on, the way it starts just with those little splash cymbals and hi-hats, that's what it actually sounds like in my room. That is about analog acoustic as it's ever going to get. And every time I hear that in headphones, I'm like, damn, I'm in there. Oh no, I'm not in the room. I'm in the car. It's like it's so real, because so many times you record stuff and you go, that don't sound like my room at all.
Yeah,
that is so unaffected.
Right.
And he left that like completely dry.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's just that one of those little things, like when you're wearing the headphones, it's kind of like that little ear thing. It's so funny when you hear that, you can really hear the stereo-ness of the splash on that side, the splash on that side, the hi-hat on that side, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a total tribute to Simone's mixing.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
And to get that done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had a lot of guys it's funny because I do drum tracks for a lot of people, and it's the same drum track, same exact, same, they all get the same raw stuff. And it's amazing how some guys can just butcher it. Some guys can make it sound okay. And then certain guys, and Simone's the only guy that I've known that's really taken it.
Knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
Yeah. And really knocked it. I mean, but we did work together on all these other projects. I send it off and I have nothing left to do, but it just kind of shows you how every engineer is looking at things differently.
Right.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Everyone. Absolutely. So before we wrap this up, we are going to react to an A to Z. Is it A to Z or A through Z technically?
Technically, it's A through Z, technically, because
gotcha.
As much as it's funny, because as much as it rolled into Alder and Zonder, the conversation that we were having as a band, and obviously it's the toughest thing to name a band. I mean, could you imagine like sitting around smoking a bunch of weed and saying, dude, it's called the band Journey. No, I'm a firm believer. You sell 1 million copies, you can call yourself Dog Crap.
Right.
Awesome name, dude. Awesome name.
Right.
I'm glad, Mark, that you brought up Journey, because it was on my question here, because you never hear this gentleman's name mentioned, and apparently your biggest influence was one of my favorite drummers too, Ainsley Dunbar.
Ainsley, absolutely. The Journey story is 15 or 16 or 14 or whatever it is in the Bay Area. Journey's, not Steve. It's before Steve Perry.
Right.
They're a total, Herbie Herbert, Nightmare, Winterland, right there in the Bay Area. So we saw them all the time. We would see them at the old Waldorf, which held 250 people. And I don't know how the hell we got in. I think it might have been an all ages show. Not that many people there. So I'm about 10 feet from Ainsley Dunbar. He's a big guy. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He's not small. He's playing traditional grip. First guy I ever saw turn the China upside down. I'm sure other guys were doing it, but the first time I ever saw that live. Yeah. And he was the first guy that I ever saw that had a drum kit that he had moons and stars and stuff painted on. And also the big thing with him was his left foot in the hi-hat. He tore the living daylights out of that drum kit and that set. And Neil Sean was just, people don't understand, they hear loving, touching, squeezing, feeling, groping, and don't stop believing. And that's great. And those are all great. But if you listen to those first 3 records, that man, it's a different guy.
Oh yeah.
It's a different guy. The stuff he played, it was so raw. It was so nasty. It was so like surgically cutting. It was ridiculous. I mean, I never forget. Big ass afro, the kimono, the white bell bottoms, that came out the ear, and the boots, and playing that Strat, and just oh my God, they do Kohoutek and Of a Lifetime and all these songs.
I love Neil Sean, and what you said about Steve Perry. We were at a Soldier Field here in Chicago for a huge concert, and Journey was the headliner, and that was they first brought. Oh, I'm sorry, Journey was right before Ted Nugent. but they did 3 or 4 songs, and then they brought Steve Perry out. They introduced him, and he comes out in a red jumpsuit. And I'm
Yep.
like, pick up a guitar, pick up a bass, pick up anything but sing. Because I love Journey as the band then. I've learned to really appreciate Steve Perry now as a singer. He's phenomenal. But I was like, like you said, of a lifetime and the first 3 Journey albums.
Oh
And
my
Neil
God.
Sean, that afro bobbing up and down and him jamming away. I love Journey.
I would have to say the most underrated, but the quintessential rock, not rock star. Yeah, he's a rock star. Greg Raleigh. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, Santana, the voice, Evil Ways, Black Magic Woman, even though, I know Fleetwood Mac, okay, they wrote the song, whatever. His voice and that keyboard playing, the Hammond of what he brought. Hey, Jonathan Cain is, to me, great, all that. But that's like eating candy.
Right.
Greg Raleigh was like eating steak.
Yeah.
I mean, Greg Raleigh, it's the Waldo effect, man. It's the grind.
Right.
Jonathan Cain, could run through a mud puddle and still come out clean.
Right.
It's like great musician, great writer, great everything. It's just everybody has their own gigs. I mean, I listen to all those records too, but something about Greg Raleigh just sitting there, off to that side. There's a thing, and I think it's from Chicago when Steve Perry first got in the band. It's a video of it's all this red brick wall in the background. It's a Chicago thing, and Steve Perry's in the white kind of coat and the white pants, and they're playing everything from Infinity, and it's Ensley Dunbar. It's not Steve Smith, and it's just amazing. Hit the songs like Winds of March. The only thing I can compare that to is like Coverdale and Glenn Hughes doing Burn.
Oh,
like two voices. The Journey took it so much further, and those complementing voices.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Infinity record really, Wheel in the Sky. I mean,
yeah, unbelievable.
I saw Journey every time they came to Chicago, and one of the best shows ever was Journey. Ronnie Montrose, and the opening act was, for the first time, Van Halen. And nobody knew who Van Halen was. And they come out and they gave him like no stage. David Lee Roth couldn't even move around. Imagine David Lee Roth not being able to move around on stage. And they just blew the place away for their 30-minute set. And Montrose came out, and Journey, of course.
Yeah, apparently on that tour, David Lee Roth did make Steve cry from legendary stories. But
I heard that story, yeah.
But Journey, I mean, you couldn't get bigger than them at the time. They were white hot. I mean, they were brighter than the sun.
Oh, and the songs, man. You want to talk about just songs?
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's interesting though, because Van Halen's kind of like Journey, because there are the two different camps. Is it Hagar? Is it Roth? Is it Steve Perry? Is it, so many people that don't really even know that there was like 3 records before he joined the band.
Right.
They just don't get it. And if they heard that stuff.
Well, so many people with Fleetwood Mac, they don't know that there was a band before Stevie
Nicks. Oh, it goes way back. I remember seeing them, with Peter Green and Bob Welch and all that.
Like Green Manalici, what? Yeah, that's
exactly.
Black Magic.
No, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. But so let's react to your music video. So here we go. All right, we got a special edition of Tunage today. We're doing a reaction with the artist, Mark Zonder. What's up, Mark? How you doing?
Good.
Right on. All right. You're going to walk us through this video. We're going to ask you questions. Phenomenal album, by the way. Everyone go out and grab this. And the best place to get it is from the label at metalblade.com/US. And of course, make sure you make it over to A2Zband.com and like them on all their socials and YouTube, as well as Mark's YouTube channel, and be frustrated as you try to play the drums along with him. And that's a good thing. All right, here we go. I love that you did that, first off, right off the bat. That was the furthest thing I was expecting, was that kind of opening.
When you sit around and you play by yourself, not with yourself, for a lot of time, you come up with stuff, and I spend a lot of time just playing the drums, but also playing around with the electronics and delays and like those are all all those samples I make myself.
Oh,
I
right.
just don't go to a thing. I make them myself, and because there's certain sounds I want to hear.
Yeah.
And I've always loved the electronic thing. And who needs to drag around a bunch of octobans? I can just do it in the pad. You know what I mean? But,
Right.
No, that was just one of those kind of intro things that I always work on. It sounds funny, but I always try to stick an intro on the front of the song, because sometimes what happens is we don't use it, but it inspires me that in the song somewhere I'm going to bring up that style of something because it fits the song.
Sure.
Right.
But I don't know. A lot of times, coming up and just being creative and coming up with those kind of things, it just worked really well. And I just thought, here we go. This is going to be the first thing that people hear of the new record.
Right.
And just sonically, it's all samples, so sonically it's going to rip through the speakers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like that little part there. Come on. Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
What else do you need?
Kind of has it all at that point, but again, just a real memorable melody line.
Yeah.
We do take some liberties that we just don't kick right into the verse. We
Right.
kind of groove for a little bit, but that's like you said, it's not just a big chunka. We're grinding it out. It's a groove where it's setting the table for what's happening. That's what's coming to come. But another thing that we talked about earlier, when you talk about space, when it goes into that, I could have played some blaze ass fill through there or whatever, or just kept the beat. But that spacing of just opening it up and just letting it ring for a second and then hitting a couple accents within it and then just have the train go right back.
Yeah,
absolutely. I can't help but smile every time I hear him sing. Every time.
Yeah.
It's hard pressed for me to remember, and I'm not trying to sound funny, but that much emotion, like he's putting the guts out there on that one.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
And but the song needs it. The song is at a certain level that you can't just give a kind of passive kind of thing. You need to bring it on this.
Yeah, and he's got the gravel going.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You got the.
I crawl on my knees towards the light. I wanted to stand up, scream at the gray. Wanted to speak, had nothing to say. But where there's a will, there's always a way. No, I'm caught in the middle.
I mean, yeah, that chorus is. I mean, how can you not have that on the radio?
I think Nick Van Dyke said it best. He goes, "Dude, if this was the '90s, we'd be in a private jet right now."
Yeah, probably.
Let me ask you guys the question. I'm sure you've heard me say car commercial, beer commercial, and Cobra Kai, right?
Yeah.
And you're all familiar with Cobra Kai, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I know what it is. Yeah.
Okay, Johnny, the drunk guy. Okay, he's just at this karate tournament. He gets his ass kicked. He gets in his car. He's got the black eye. He's got the Coors in the one hand. The car's all screwed up. It's an old Trans Am that's beat the crap. He goes to shift down, and this kicks on. I mean, come on. That's a home run. That's what I'm talking about. It's like it's that kind of music that picks people up and that gets them excited.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can also see this totally in Peacemaker.
Yeah,
Like
no,
it's in any
it's
Marvel movie.
yeah, it's anthem music. It's some people
Right.
scorn,
Oh man,
scoff at it, but it's rock anthems. It's arena rock.
Yeah.
absolutely. Singing for the last row, man. Gotta dig it.
Absolutely.
I'm lost for the moment, every turns the same. Oh, but nothing is over until I say I'll break down the walls someday.
That was beautiful. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on right there.
As much as that is the intro drum riff, it's all by itself. It
Yeah.
shows up 2 more times in the middle of a song.
Yeah.
That blah, da, 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 it's part of the song. It's not just like, hey, let me blow my wad for the first 12 seconds,
Right.
and it has nothing to do with the song. It goes back to that thing of orchestrating
Right.
and tying the whole song together. Because when it
Yeah.
comes back up, people are like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Am I losing my mind? I'm come to the end of the line. There's cracks in the pavement, lines on my face. Nowhere to turn, no way to escape. But nothing is over until I say I'm caught in the middle, trapped in a maze. I'm lost for the moment, every turn's the same.
Got that heartbeat going through there. Boom, 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 boom.
No, absolutely. There's a little underlying thing that some people pick up on, some don't. But at first, I had a cowbell on all 4 beats in the background, just kind of like that, "Don't Fear the Reaper" kind of thing, or you're just playing the constant. And then I thought it was a little too much, so I cut it out, and I only played it on beats 1 and 2. So it's like nothing is over kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it adds a little bit of thing. But I have to tell you the story. In the middle of the verse where we hit those little accents,
Yeah.
it goes into the triplet kind of feel.
Right.
That's one of those things of like listening to the song a million times and saying, hey, wait a minute, Ray's kind of singing triplety there. Let me try this. And I played the accents and I sent it to Nick, and then he just shifted up the guitar part. So your second verse has something special going on that really nails that kind of thing. And those guys are just so good at coming up and just taking an idea that someone has and really like
building on it. Yeah.
Well, so many times people's egos get in the way of what everyone's trying to do. And as
no, absolutely. Or in the previous incarnation, when I'd have an idea like this, I'd be happy if I got 70% return.
Right.
And then I just have to give up because it wasn't going anywhere. As compared to this, they make it and they take it and they go, hey, that's really cute, but let's make it, more.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
But nothing is over until I say I'll break down the walls someday.
That was fantastic, by the way. Go ahead.
I love the way the keyboards sound. They like,
oh yeah,
it's kind of like the glistening thing without like being obnoxious. But if you took them out, it'd be missing.
You miss it.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
Oh, for sure. And I just pictured them rocking off the stand like you snapped it.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm caught in the middle, trapped in a maze. I'm lost for the moment.
And I'm hearing the cowbell like you're talking about. And I also just want to make sure that we mention your partner in rhythm, Mr. Philip Bino. You guys sound great together, man.
Oh yeah.
Like
He is
you guys
definitely. Let's
got
just leave it this way, and we'll keep it clean. But he's Samuel Jackson. Let's just leave it there. You know, he is. He is so. I don't know. He's one of those guys. You know, I'd leave my car keys, my kids, and my checkbook with him. He's been a good friend for a lot of years.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Total respect. Just the ultimate musician. Just yeah. Yeah. But yeah, his playing though is just nasty. That's all I can say. You know.
Oh yeah.
I always kind of joke like when, and again, don't take offense, people. I'm sure everybody will, but hey, I got my opinion.
Who cares?
You know, when you think of treble, I think of Billy Sheehan. When I think of bass, I think of Philip Bino.
That's right.
I
Hey,
mean,
and
nasty.
next time you talk to him, tell him I love the Google eyes on the bongo bass there.
No, absolutely, absolutely. No, he is really that ultimate professional guy. You know, just and yeah, we've played. I remember the first time I played with him. It was funny because my band Slavier was looking for a bass player. And my friend turns me on to him, and I go to his website, and here's this dude in a really nice shirt sitting in the middle of a field playing a cello. And I read down his thing, and it's talking about playing on the Tonight Show with Carson and whatever. And I'm going. I looked at my wife and I said, "There's no way in hell this guy's playing with us. There's just no way." And he's turned out to be the guy that everything I do from that point on is with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just the man. I mean, there's no
Once
question.
you find it, you find it.
Every time's the same. Oh, but nothing is over until I say nothing is over. Nothing is over. Not until I say no.
Awesome.
That was the best $35 investment I ever made.
Nice. Oh, for the animated logo.
Yeah.
Excellent. Everyone, definitely go grab this right now. And where are you going to get it? You're going to get it at metalblade.com/US. Mark, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, man.
Appreciate it more. We've all been excited to talk to you, man. And you've been
Absolutely.
great. Thank you so
I
much.
got to tell you, and I know I'm not getting paid for this, but this is like interview 7 today. Started early, and this was the best. No doubt about it.
Right on.
Awesome.
Thank you, man.
No
Appreciate it.
doubt about it. It's always great to talk.
Go ahead.
It's always just great to talk music
Yeah.
with people that like get it and
Yeah,
like
Right.
get it instead
And
of
what's interesting too, like you had brought up like interest just recently. People have been bringing up this musician. We interviewed David Huff last week.
okay.
He had brought up, everyone's starting to bring up Phil Collins now from Genesis as far as one of the drum guys, and another guy who gets looked over because of he's Phil Collins. But if you could just say a word, like I know you're kind of, you like Genesis a lot, or did any word on that real quick?
I was more. I love some of the earlier songs. It really kicked me in the pants with Invisible Touch.
Yeah.
The overly modern production. I got into that whole thing. With that kind of thing. I wasn't going to program it. I was going to play it because I didn't want that kind of thing. But a lot of those ideas, like a lot of those sounds, those sub sounds that he was doing. But I mean, he again will go down as to me in my book, as the most underrated performer in our generation.
Yeah.
Amazing drummer, just a great drummer, period. End of conversation. Probably has the iconic drum fill of all time. You can talk John Bonham all you want,
Sure.
but in the air, everybody in
yeah.
the air. And then let's get into composing and singing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that's like Shohei Ohtani on steroids that can sell hot dogs at the same time as he's in the parking lot taking your
when
money.
he did Can't Hurry Love, I was like, what?
Yeah, it's
Like,
he's just
unbelievable.
Consummate
it's Phil
musician.
Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah, just amazing, just all the way around the block. And he also, here's a guy in a career that was completely in the prog world, like underwater in the prog world,
Right.
Yeah.
to the Lion King. So he kind of did the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But-
very weird. Genesis, also another band that's two very distinctive versions. You know,
That's too. But there's Invisible Touch is really tough to beat in my book.
absolutely.
Song to song
But
to song.
you know what album does beat it? This one right here, folks. Go out and buy it.
You said it, not me.
metalblade.com.
Awesome.
And, Mark, thank you very much, sir. And we will talk
Thank
to you
you, Mark.
soon, buddy.
My pleasure. Thank you guys, man. I really appreciate it.
Horns up, guys. We'll see you next time.